In this video, we're going to get into typography, forms, and tables. So we're going to start with the very basics. Let's start with creating some headings and see what those look like. So I have my index.html file here, and I'm linking to Bootstrap.css. We have a container div here, and inside here, let's just put in an h1. We'll say headings, and I just want to give you an example of all the different sizes of headings. So let me just copy that. Just change this out. And you can kind of use this file as a reference. Alright, so if we look at the headings, that's what each heading looks like, H1 through H6. Now we can use secondary text as well. So if we were to say H1, say welcome, and inside the H1 we can put a small tag, and this would be secondary text. Okay, so that would look like that. Alright, now paragraphs. Go ahead and just put in a normal paragraph, and I'm just going to grab some just some dummy text to throw in there. Okay, so nothing special, just have a paragraph. And if we want to kind of emphasize this and make it a little bigger without actually changing the font size, we could go ahead and add a class called lead. And now if I reload, you can see that it's a little bigger and more prominent. Alright, we can also use tags in here like mark if we want to highlight some text. Okay, so if we were to look at that, you can see that that text is now highlighted. We can use del, D-E-L. And if we look at that, you can see that that puts a line through the text. Alright, so just some simple things you can do to kind of dress it up a little. Now alignment, let's go ahead down here, and I'm just going to put a heading. Each part we get into, I'm going to just put an H1 so we know what we're dealing with. So this will be alignment, and what we'll do is put in a paragraph. Let me just grab some text. Alright, so if we want, we can put in the class of text left, and if we take a look at that, you can see that, well, it doesn't, I guess it doesn't really, it's not any different because left is the default. But let me copy this, and we'll change this to text right, and then you can see that this text is now aligned to the right. Okay, we can also do centered. If we do text center, which I use quite a bit, it's centered to the middle. We can also use justify. Which in this case doesn't look any different than the left, but we can justify it. We can also use no wrap. So text no wrap, which also you can't really tell. Let me just add some more text in here. Maybe that can give us a good example. Okay, so see that it's not wrapping, it just keeps going. If I were to take that class off of there, then it would wrap. Alright, so those are just some alignment classes we can use. We also have transformation classes. Okay, so let's do paragraph. We'll give this a class of text lowercase. So no matter what I put in here, even if I do all uppercase, you can see that it gets transformed to lowercase. Alright, and we can do the same thing with text uppercase. Okay, and then we can also do text capitalize. And what text capitalized does is it just takes the first letter of the word and capitalizes it. Okay, so just some really simple but helpful classes. Okay, we also have block quotes. I'm just going to go ahead and put a block quote tag. And let's just paste a paragraph in there. And that's what the block quote looks like. So you have this nice little border on the left here. We can also do a reverse block quote. So if I copy this whole thing, and let's just give this a class of block quote reverse, and that's going to put that border on the right side of it and the text on the left. Alright, so now let's get into lists. So we're going to go ahead and put in a UL. Alright, so if we look at that, you can see that it doesn't look any different than a regular list. And I'm not going to get into list groups yet. That's going to come later on when we look at the CSS components. But this is just a standard list. Now, in a lot of the cases, you'll want to remove the bullet, and you'll also want to remove that initial padding there. So to do that, we can just add a simple class to the UL called list unstyled. Alright, if we do that, reload, now you can see that the bullet's gone, and so is that padding. Alright, and we can nest lists if we want. For instance, we'll put in here a UL. I'll just grab one of these. Okay, if I reload, now you can see we have a nested list. And that unstyled doesn't pertain to nested list. You'd have to actually add it like this. Okay, but if you do that, it's just going to blend in with the rest of the list items. So it's kind of pointless. Okay, so tables. Let's go ahead and add a table here. I'm going to put in an H1. Did I put in H1 for lists? Yeah, I did. Alright, so tables, we'll go ahead and add a table tag. And let's add a table row. And inside here, we're going to have our headings. So table heading. And let's say first name, last name, and email. Alright, and then down here we'll have a table row, and we want some columns which are TD. So we'll just say John. Doe. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this table row right here. Okay, so if we save this and reload, this is what a table is going to look like by default. Now if we go up here and we add a class, let's add a class of table, save it, reload, and you can see that that makes the world of a difference. Okay, this looks much better, much cleaner, just by adding a class of table. Okay, now there's a few things we can do with table. We can make it striped if we want to add another class of table dash striped. And what that'll do is it'll make every other row gray, give it a gray background. So that looks pretty nice. And we can also add a class of table hover. If we do that, and then as we hover over each element here, you can see that it turns gray. Okay, we can also do, if we want to make it a little more condensed, we can use a class called table condensed. Reload, and now you can see that there's less spacing inside of the cells. We also have contextual styles. So let's say for one of these rows we want to give it a green background. We could go to a TR and put in a class of, let's say, success. Reload, and now you can see we have a green background. Let's say this one right here, we want to give it a class of danger, and that'll give it a red background. And these contextual classes, these exist throughout all different types of elements, buttons, table rows, alerts, things like that. Alright, next thing we're going to do is forms. Let's do H1. Okay, and what we're going to do here is just create a simple form. Now you want to wrap your form fields in a div with the class of form group. Okay, so in this form group, let's put a label. We'll say name for this field, and then an input, and the type will be text. And then we want to give it a class of form control. Okay, that'll give it some padding and extend the input 100%. Okay, if we go ahead and save that and reload, you can see our text field here looks pretty nice. It goes all the way across. It's got some padding, got some box shadow. Alright, let's say we wanted to also have an email. Copy that. Do email. Okay, there we got another text. And let's say maybe a password. We can change the type here to password. Okay, so those are text and password fields. Now if we want to have, let's say, a select, we can do that. I'm just going to paste this in and then replace this with select. And let's also give this a class of form control. And then we'll just put some options. Oh, this should be value. Okay, so that's a select. Take a look at that. You can see that also stretches across the whole area. What else? We have checkbox we can do. For that, let's do div class equals checkbox. And then we'll just put in label. And then we'll put the checkbox inside that. So input type checkbox. And we'll just have the text checkbox. Okay, so there we have a simple form, simple checkbox field, and then we'll have a submit. So right here we could say input type equals submit and value equals submit. Okay, we could add a class to that. Let's say class btn default, and I'll get into buttons in the next video. But you can see now we have a submit button there, and it needs btn and btn default, and you can see it gives it a nice clean look. We can also have inline forms, and let me just show you an example. If we go to get Bootstrap and then CSS and then forms, okay, this is basically what we just did. Inline form here. So if we want to grab this and copy, put a couple line breaks here, throw that in, and there we have a inline form. So that would be good for something like a login or a search box. Alright, so I think that'll do it for this video. In the next video we are going to get into more CSS components such as buttons and button groups, alerts, panels, things like that. So I will see you in the next video.